You ready?
Here we go. Episode 14. Welcome back, everybody. We are here once again. Another week, another time, another ready. We going. I have a lot of caffeine in me right now, so I'm just like super
I'm going to restart you because I'm going to do the freaking beginning or shut
So my beginning was great.
No, it was not great. It was not like you had a stroke near the end.
I think you should just leave it.
All right, whatever. All right, Nick, welcome back.
Hi.
Another episode on. What do you got? What do you got for this week?
I have the Doorman Fallacy. I have a little bit of a reflection on having a discussion with my family members about being 1% of America. Those are the two things that are like top of mind for me right now. What about you?
Why do you need a rival?
Okay, that's enough of a hook where I'm like, what the heck?
Let's go.
Okay.
I am more intrigued on your Doorman Fallacy. I just love fallacies. Or the 1%er. I'm down for a start. I think we could end ours. Mine sounds pretty bland, so
let's dive into the 1% piece just because that's like top of mind of the conversation I have with my family.
Okay, go for it.
Let me see where you're at on the spectrum first. So do you know what salary you have to make as an individual in the United States to be considered a 1% earner?
I was at like 200K.
You're a little off. So I first heard about it through a Gary Vaynerchuk video that he had where he just discusses to people about like how lucky you are and things like that. And why do people always try to be millionaires when to be 1%, you just have to make air quote, $440,000 a year. At the time, I never fact checked it, but it was a moment that caused me to at least reflect what 1% actually looked like. And it wasn't Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, things like that. Those people are at the 1% of the 1% kind of level with their wealth. The actual number, when I checked the IRS's website, in 2019, your adjusted income would need to be 540 to be in the 1%. Either way, you don't have to be a millionaire or a multimillionaire or a billionaire to be at that level.
Is this for yearly income or is this a
yearly?
Is that number okay?
Yearly individual income of 540,000.
Yep. No, I'm not.
But where that came from, where I had the discussion with my family, was when I was as president of San Jose State University. We had talked about how the middle class doesn't actually exist, and it's a political tool that's used to address the majority without offending anyone. Think about it. What would you say you grew up like? In what social economic area?
I would say lower middle class. You know, we won't fall off where we're like struggling, but it wasn't the greatest. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't luxurious. Best way I could explain it.
So what differentiates you from being in the middle class then? Or the upper middle class? Well,
as a kid, just would be more disposable income, whatever that meant. At first, I really thought I was at quote unquote upper middle class from all the vacations we took and everything else. And as I pierced like the veil of my family's finances, we were check to check, in debt, going to these vacations, and that's when now I would say we were like more lower class just because of optic wise, but perception I would say upper middle class when I was a kid.
So perception, upper middle class, you would consider yourself to be lower middle class. What would you consider your family being poor?
No.
How would you define that?
How define the definition of poor?
Yeah.
I would say be worse off than paycheck to paycheck. I would say paycheck to paycheck, but you can't even do anything with that. Paycheck to paycheck, I would say lower middle class, only because you can still function and still be okay in breaking zero, versus poor, you're always struggling in negatives.
Got it. So let me repeat this back. So poor, you're operating in a negative. Lower middle class, you're paycheck to paycheck. Middle class, you have some disposable income. Upper middle class, you have more disposable income. And then what would rich be?
Just abundance of fuck you money.
Okay, so you have a fuck you fund.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So me making $200,000 a year, but because I have a lot of expenses and I play around a lot, I and paycheck to paycheck. So I'm lower middle class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really? You would still consider that lower middle class, even making 200K a year?
Well, if you think about it, rich dad, poor dad, you can make so many X money, but you're still operating at a zero.
Okay, so you would consider me lower middle class with that scenario that I talked
Yeah, with
about.
that
But what would
philosophy of
society think of me
society
as?
would say you're upper class, 100%. Society would say you're like you'll be up there. Even for me, I'd be like, oh, you're not knowing your background. I would say, yeah, you're fucking you could afford it. I always joke about that, but yeah, I would say that. But not knowing the backgrounds of things, optically just being super surface level. If, oh, you're making 200K, yeah, you're up there, and like higher middle class or upper class.
So you know how like we just went through all those kind of definitions and how they're
Mm-hmm.
very subjective to the way that you look
Mm-hmm.
at different things. But did you also notice when I brought up poor, you hesitated and actually had a little bit of more of an emotional reaction to it than when you were
Tad.
defining middle class?
Yeah, because I feel poor right now. I'm like, damn, you struck a chord right there.
So the reason why when we were where this came from, right? The AS
Mhm.
presidents of the CSU system, we always met up every month. We did a lot of lobbying up in, California, up in Sacramento at the Capitol, or, with other different policies that we had to deal with. And that's where it brought up this conversation about, does the middle class actually exist, or is it just a political tool? And we were thinking it's more of a political tool because if you remove the middle class, then the only way that you can address large groups is either the rich or the poor. And
Yeah,
calling anyone poor causes an emotional reaction.
yeah. It now it's just it has that automatically I'm above you like stigma.
Someone's above you, right? Or no politician, even if there's a line in the sand that you can actually define as like, you are poor, the fact that someone's being like, the poor in California need these things in order to survive, versus the middle class in California needs these services to survive.
It makes the blow a little softer.
It makes it a little bit softer, but it also like hides like maybe what it actually means, because now you have, like, by introducing middle class, you have all of these shades of what the middle class is, from like, I'm like, bottom tier, lower middle class. I'm like higher tier, lower middle class, but I wouldn't say I'm actually middle class yet. Oh, I'm kind of middle class, right?
There's no really definition of said with that. When I was starting to go on my financial journey of really going into it, it was your cash flow of what defined your kind of poor, middle class, upper class type of status in my head, not because of I always learn understanding just basic finances, personal finances, was that if they're poor, what's their negative, what's their balance sheet, middle class, upper class, then just seeing a number saying, oh yeah, you're definitely upper class. So I think that makes it different for me and you. It's because we're both in that world. So if you're not in it, people just say, oh, you're making X, you got to be up there.
It also comes, have you heard of what a Henry is?
No.
High earner, not rich yet. So it's a term that's coined for individuals that make high incomes, but they have no, I mean, in a way, they like blame society for the cost of living, but realistically, they have no control over their expenses. And so their expenses match their high incomes. And so
Yeah,
they're for the most part not saving or anything.
it's the basic psychology of money. Oh, if you hear there was a small little thing about on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. There was like a small little house party with other neighbors, and they said, "Oh my God, my husband just got a raise. Now we can afford to get the stuff and get the kitchen renovated, or something like that." And why you got to increase something when you don't need to? I don't know. It's just that's a small tangent.
So where all the reason why I kind of walked you through all those little blends is having a conversation with individuals. One, money is sensitive. But two, if you have the conversation and you strip away the ability to address anything as the middle class, it becomes very emotional all of a sudden.
And very heated.
Super heated. Because then you're like, well, what's the line of rich? And you're like, well, I think majority of people could say if you're in the 1%, you're rich. So then that would be in 2019, that's 540,000. In 2020, the IRS hasn't published more recent data yet, but the number is anywhere between like closer to 600K to 800K, depending on what kind of survey you're looking at. So let's say we draw the line in the sand at 600K. So if you're above 600K a year as an individual, as an individual making 600K a year, you're rich. Anything below that, you're poor. Which, hey, you know what? I'm poor. It is what it is if it's by that definition. But it puts people a little bit on their heels a little bit when you start to talk about it like in those terms. But one thing I do think that it modifies is if you're saying you're in middle class, it almost makes you feel like you're on track and you're okay. So you can also be a little bit more ignorant or neglect having to look at the line by line item. But if you're being told you're poor, money becomes a little bit more pressing where you're going to take a little bit more look at it.
Mm-hmm. Even more monitored or even just more motivated to do something. It can go either way.
It could go either way. Or if you're older, it hurts a lot more because you're like, I've been doing this stuff for 40 years and I'm still what you're considering poor, right? See the emotionalness that comes with that? I don't know.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, so, it's triggering.
So how did it hit your family? Like, how did that conversation hit fam?
Oh, it was like a rude awakening of me being like, yo, you're still poor. No, we're still good. It's no, like, I don't care about what you own. I care about the cash flow. I care about what you're investing in. I care about the assets. I mean, that's why you can see sometimes people that are like, you see those stories. Of course, stories are always cherry picked, but the teacher that makes 60K a year, that's a millionaire.
It's like the wealthy barber of the book. Like, you just got to be smart in how where things invest and where it's one of those weird things. So
ruthlessly invest, save, build an asset that grows versus spending everything that you have or when you make it.
I kind of want to dig onto something when you said asset that grows. It's even it took a while even for that. Like what is an asset and understanding that as of right now, yes, you can put money in stock, and how do you treat that as an asset? And it took me a while to figure that out. Or versus looking on saving some money to build a business as an asset or a real estate property as an asset. It's always so ambiguous when I say build assets. I always been told build assets, build that. Look, what the fuck are assets?
Especially when like an asset, when someone miscategorizes an asset so that they can call it an asset. Like, I bought this Jordan shoe. Like, speculative collectible items, I don't know if they're always going to be assets. I guess they're high risk assets.
Yeah, they're high. I would say collectibles and that kind of stuff would be a high risk asset, as you could just buy a very volatile stock. But what is it for me? It wasn't saying buying stock as an asset, and I need to view it as that, not just buy and sell stock, because it's a totally different kind of game to grow wealth and to set yourself up for the future. And it took me a while to even understand that, and just playing the long game of things like that Warren Buffett effect. Just if you don't really know, just put in the SP 500, call it a day, and that in itself is the asset, because every year they give out the dividends and reinvesting into it. So again, at the end of the day, it's still making money for you instead of actively buying and selling a stock, which is not really an asset now. It's just a I want to say ticket, but
buying individual stocks is risky.
Just that realm of an asset that could be misconstrued.
I'm sure we could go on Investopedia and find like a actual definition. The way I look at an asset or a liability, an asset ideally will appreciate, a liability will depreciate, and then there's like a sliding scale around the certainty that is involved with the chance of it appreciating versus the chance of it depreciating. So let's say speculative collectible items are more on the line between liability and an asset, because the certainty that's involved with it appreciating is a lot less than something like the S&P 500, which you can look back historically over time. The certainty of it going up over a long period of time is like a lot more certain than like this one specific shoe, card, whatever, right? Or like rookie cards, you buy the cards up front, you don't know what that person accomplishes for years down the line, of whether that's going to be
hoping it hits.
Yeah, boom or bust. You're like, I don't know. I don't know.
No, that's just crazy. It is interesting. So how did How did that conversation with your family go with when you said that? How did they go off and how they react and how that turmoil kind of settle?
My mindset with money is buy your liabilities with the yields from your assets. And a lot of the times that means you have to push off a lot of what you want to a later date because building the asset takes a lot longer than I have money today. I can go and spend it on something
and get it and not really, yeah.
But it's also not binary. I think you can have, let's say you got a bonus at the end of the year. It's $10,000. That's $10,000 that you didn't bake into all the stuff that you were going to spend on for the year. Take 50% of it, throw it in savings, and then spend the other 50% of it. And 50% of it went towards something down the line that's going to be beneficial. And the 5,000 of it is kind of like the reward for working hard or whatever. So you can kind of get a little bit of like a treat along the way. I think there's a large subset of people that I know that would have spent the 10K.
Yeah. For me, I actually had a really good return with, again, the LLC stuff, but it's 75% is going in as high yield savings for something bigger. I don't know what it is yet. It could be a real estate thing or just, again, growing a boring business, but I'm starting my pot. It's very small, takes time. And I was like, at least it felt good just to put that money away versus me blowing it. And I still have something. I was like, okay, it was my first year after to actually have a decent positive instead of fuck, I gotta use this to pay off this debt, I gotta use this to pay off that, or we're gonna blow it and spend on this. I've done years past, and I was like, it felt really good just to say at the end of this, I had a small but a growing positive that can start to snowball.
There was someone I was talking to, and they just automated it where anything that comes in, a certain percentage gets put aside. And so by them not even seeing it, they don't have to go through the personal decision making of, ooh, there's, $5,000. What do I do with it? I got $3,000 of it and that's it.
Wait, isn't that more of the Ramit Sethi of teach you to be rich? Because it's put it away, you don't really see it, you just automatically go into this, and that's what I do. I put all these small little bundles, and sometimes my girlfriend's like, "How you say you're broke, but you can buy these things?" But yeah, I'm broke, but I put money aside for these small categories of a hobby fund of small $25-$50 a month, and I don't really spend much on hobbies until month 6, and they accumulated to be $300 if I was 50 on averaging $50 a week. Like my magic stuff, I just never bought anything hobby wise or anything I needed, and 3 months later I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy these volatile collectibles and see what happens. It was my sort of FU money, and it just slowly grew over time, and and then I could decide what I did with it instead of just kind of blowing it right away.
I'm always in a state of I'm broke. I don't think it's ever changed.
I make sure I keep my checking account extremely low.
Yeah, so like you look at it on like the app or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, there's only
Broke.
$500. What the heck?
Oh my god.
Sure, there's a bunch of accounts doing other things, but yeah, you ignore those.
I think this is the most active account on broke.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is interesting. I think understanding 1%, but to challenge it, I know you want to be the 1% making 600 a year, and for me, I just want to kind of have that just fuck you money. To me, that's a rich life. That makes me 1% to say I could be on a standpoint of fuck you, pretty much.
I don't want to be the 1% for the sake of being 1%. The product of my like the math that I've done just happens to align with I need to get to that point so that I can afford what I want. The goal is that I just like right. It's remember when we were in the fraternity and we were like striving to be one of the best chapters of DSP in the nation. And it was like, well, do we try to be the best on campus or do we strive to be the best in the nation? And then the result is we happen to be the best on campus. Same kind of philosophy.
It just trickles down.
Yeah, it trickles down. Like being a 1% person, and it like just happens to be that because the number happens to be that. But if the things that I wanted to mathematically achieve and accomplish happen to be below the $600,000 threshold, then okay, great, I'm top 5%. But it's not like the goal was 5% or 1%, but it just happened to fall that way with the way the math played out.
That's fair.
Yeah. Math. Like math. If we could throw it in a spreadsheet, let's go.
I know. I also want to talk about just on the 1% stuff. I'm gonna do a small round of social media just about that and how everyone seems so easy. You can do this so easy, and I just want to. It's not. It takes plan. It takes so much time, and I didn't get this time until 28, and it didn't click until I was 28, and slowly growing it now. It's such a slow burn, and you can't expect something to happen so fast. And I feel again, people feel this so discouraged if it's not happening on the first deal. And what does it mean to even make a deal first to buy a boring business? And I know we talked about that in the previous podcast, but I don't know what I'm gonna buy. I don't know how. I'm still learning, and that in itself takes time. You just can't dive into it and say, and that's where dangerous. That's where something dangerous can happen, or you're gonna put all this money in the stock without properly researching it, and that takes time on what does it mean as an asset, as a stock or investment, an index fund, and something like that. So I think that was the hard part on trying to quote unquote saying trying to be a 1%er. That just takes so much time. So I just want to go on my soapbox and just say everything takes time, and I feel like everything out there in the internet world shows that you can just do it tomorrow, and it's not always like that.
The
So
1% is the 1% because it's the 1%.
because
Like
it was
if everyone was there, it'd be the 100%, and it'd be a new defined 1%.
Let's drop into your fallacy here. I want to hear the Doorman fallacy.
The Doorman Fallacy.
Doorman me, bro.
Okay.
It sounds interesting.
Have you heard of the Doorman Fallacy before?
No, I've not until now.
Okay. So I first heard about it on Ali Abdal's podcast, where he was interviewing an individual named Rory Sutherland. And a little bit about Rory. Rory is, I know him on a first name basis right now because I saw one of his podcasts. He's a advertising exec out in the UK.
So good.
And he's written a bunch of publications, books. One of his books was called Alchemy, The Power of Ideas That Don't Make Sense. And in that book, he discusses what he calls the Doorman Fallacy. What the Doorman Fallacy is about this story of where a bunch of consultants are brought into a 5-star hotel with the goal to bring efficiency to the hotel. And so what they do is they start looking at all the different aspects of the hotel, and they start to basically categorize each of them. So they look at a doorman, and they're like, the doorman opens the door. That is his job. And then they continue down everything, and they're like, okay, on this giant spreadsheet, open the door. We're paying someone to do this. Can we automate this with technology? Yes. Okay, we're going to put in an automated door opener. And so then you fire the doorman, you put in the automated opener. Woohoo, I saved money. People, are happy that you're having a higher profit. But the one thing that isn't categorized or thought about there is, what does a doorman do? And I don't know, have you been to a hotel where they actually have an actual doorman?
Yeah.
What do they do?
They would like direct you on where you can go, how you can park. It's just like small little like hospitality things.
So they're doing more than just opening the door.
Open the door.
Exactly. They can help hail a taxi. Sometimes they're helping you with your luggage. In a way, they're kind of like a concierge. Like there's a different.
It is your first impression of the hotel.
Yeah, there's a different vibe, right? Versus like walking through Best Western and the doors open up and then you just go into the corner and you maybe see some like fake Formica countertop to talk to someone. And so that's the part that gets missed when you're analyzing things. And so the Doorman Fallacy is where you can categorize this one thing, but then disregard everything else in the value that it brings. And then you make decisions off of that narrow scope versus a wider scope or lens. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was like, professionally, I come from an operational background where we're always looking to find efficiencies. I mean, I'm an ex-consultant, right? Like it's what we did. And it's something that I never thought about because a lot of the times you put these kind of categories together and then you disregard the other value that comes with that. I think every 5-star hotel that I could think of still has a doorman. I can't think of one that doesn't. Like I remember when I was at the Ritz, I don't even know if the Ritz is considered 5-star, maybe it's 4-star, but there's a doorman. I mean, there's butlers, there's a bunch of other things that are there that sure, you could have a robot go and do, but it just wouldn't be the same. And
It
it
wouldn't be,
wouldn't,
yeah.
it's not going to command that same price. There's no way you're going to be like, yeah, I'll pay $600 a night to go to this place.
Not talk to anybody.
Yeah, not talk to anybody and call the like an automated dial system. Like for one, press, or what is that? Like for the front lounge, press 1. For the like room service, click 2. And you're like, why am I paying so much money?
I'll get the fuck out of here. Oh, that was interesting.
Like, can you think of some other examples of things that like technology kind of pulls this level of concierge or experience or things like that?
Oh, just the basic customer service when they have the chat bots. It's hard. It's, oh, could do this, is your problem solved? Not really. Sometimes I don't know how to type what I need to feel and how to express what I need to get the problem solved, and we'll get back to you in thing. And I don't know, it's easier to talk to someone, even they outsource it or not. I get better results to get it done. So for example, if you go Chase, MX, or even for my web service was HostGator, I call them and they said they will help me out no matter what. And I would always go back to them because they have that. I'm like, there'll be no problem.
When we think of different, I guess you could say products or experiences, you could have your budget experience. You walk into a Walmart and there's going to be long lines. You're not expecting anyone to help you, but at least the expectations are set that everything is going to be on a cost savings experience, right? When you go to Frontier Airlines, your plane may not even show up, but that's what you're getting for that's what you're getting for that expectation. Where I think there's some gray area is in the middle to high tier. The middle tier
will have a really good product, I think.
Maybe they have a good product, or maybe their product's good, but because they're kind of playing in the middle space, maybe their customer service is bad. There's a lot of like mixed expectations that happen in that middle tier. So maybe if we're still sticking on the airline area, that would be like United Airlines. It's kind of in that middle tier of kind of an okay product, kind of okay customer service, not really too sure half the time.
Get a job done. It won't be that great, but it can be great.
Exactly. And then you have the higher tier where your level of expectations are a lot higher and you get value from different things. So price cutting at that area and automating in that like tier becomes a lot more problematic because it's almost like a bait and switch. If I'm paying for Emirates Airlines, I'm expecting something amazing. 1, because the price is there. 2, because they're just kind of at that higher tier of an experience. Same with Singapore Air. Those are a different level of experience. When I'm walking to a Ritz Carlton or a St. Regis, I have a different expectation that's coming from that brand because they're playing in that higher tier space. They might be just a little bit more expensive. So you're still expecting just a little bit more of an experience to be with it. So if they're cutting corners, it's going to be super, like it'll hurt their brand or it hurts the experience.
Yeah, but maybe it's more upper tier. So it was crazy. Well, how about you? Have you dealt with that internally of trying to automate something or on a personal or at work and experience that you're like, oh, this was a kind of a Doorman fallacy?
For work, all the time. When you're running any kind of team with a budget, you're always trying to optimize the budget as much as possible with the most minimal downside.
Want to hop on my topic, or do you want?
Yeah, let's go to your topic.
Okay, so why do we need a rival? Originally, I said, why do we need an enemy? But so this kind of stemmed. I was rewatching Rush. It was a Formula One movie back in the 80s, I believe. 80s, late 90s. Are you familiar with that movie? Heard about it?
Never seen it. So
it was like 2 legendary Formula One drivers, James Hunt and Niki Lauda, and they were just rivals. They would just hate the whole movie. They're trying to beat each other. And Niki had a really horrific accident, kind of sidelined him, and he came back to race. But at the end of the movie, there's a quote. I'm gonna actually give a little side story of just paint the picture. So Niki is more of the straight edge, disciplined, working hard, gotta win as many championships as I can. And James was more of the partier. I just need one. You know, I see this. I'm good. I'm just gonna relax, and I'm gonna be that free flowing guy, this super nonchalant type of individual, but still really good at what they do.
So Max Verstappen versus who's the guy from
I would,
Japan?
oh, I know who you're talking about the guy who's in not Alpine, but the other Red Bull team.
Yeah, the other one.
The other Red Bull team.
Is that who we're comparing right now?
Not really, not really. They're both equally good. So at the very end, James won his one world championship, and at the very end of the movie, James and Nikki ran into the airport hangar on a private jet, and they saw each other. Um, Nikki was training again. James was gallivanting off doing vacation, and they were talking about working and stuff like that. Nikki said, "I need you to be working." And then he says, "Why? Why can't we enjoy the little things and just enjoy life?" And Nikki said, "I hated you, kind of caused my accident, whatever." But Nikki also said the quote was, "A wise man gets more from his enemies than a fool from his friends."
So he saw him as an enemy?
As a rival in a sense, like it's someone to push him, someone to bust his balls because they were going at it. They were busting each other's balls like hard. Like
No.
it was like so legit enemies. I hate you so much, I would sabotage you type of shit. That was their dynamic in the racing world.
Wow.
Yeah. So from that and that small little cute in the airport hangar, they're like, I need you to keep busting my balls. I need you to get back to work type of stuff because I need you more than you. I need, how that dynamic was. And at the end, then he did a reflection point saying, many people saw us as rivals, but I saw him as someone I respected, regardless of the situation. We never hated each other, but we never saw eye to eye, but I still respected him.
Hmm.
So that's why I said, why do we need a rival? And that was like, we get more from that because it pushes us. So my reflection point was kind of dig into it or dive into it. But if you have that rival that you just want to keep on, your level is gonna keep on going up, regardless if you hate each other or not. Sometimes I'm gonna just be better than you, and then they get better than you, then you're gonna be better than them. And at the end of the day, a reflection point, you're like, crap, we both made it super far because we're just trying to push each other to be better than each other. And next thing you know, you guys are now default both the best. Just kind of thought process.
It's a
So
little
I
bit
thought it
of
was,
the people you hang out with.
yeah.
When they figure things out, then you start to figure things out. I guess you could see them as a rival. I never really thought about that way. I just thought about it as that like sphere of influence and motivation creates a new status quo or like a standard that kind of unlocks things each time.
But sometimes it's never a friend group sometimes, sometimes you're in a situation where you're just kind of combating from afar and it's not friend to friend. So it's pretty crazy. Like, you ever had a situation like that of, oh, I as a student I did.
I was gonna say the
I was like,
closest thing is like with the fraternity, right? Like you just compete against other
mhm.
fraternities. It's like friendly, but you still want to be better than them.
Yeah. When I was an athletic training student, oh, I was like, all my cohorts or anyone else or someone I met, I was like, I hate you just because you're better than me. Fuck you. And then I got really good, and then they got good, and then yeah, and it was funny.
Can't really think of anything like that where I've had like an enemy that I've chased. And I wonder if it's because I don't have an enemy to chase or because I didn't have one, I chase what's in my spreadsheets. So I created a fake one.
And it still counts.
Yeah, but it's not like you see someone else win, so then you're like having to recalibrate, I guess. Maybe there is some. I think looking back at some of the people that I was in class with, seeing how their careers went, makes me reflect on like their path.
I think another one I kind of just thought about was my dad at a certain point in my life.
Also,
Um, it was mainly like, again, the college, early college, mid college, when he said everything I was doing was a waste of time, and I pretty much said "fuck you" in that kind of thought process. And then he saw it, then he's, oh shit, you know,
so to
and he
prove
started
someone
seeing,
wrong.
yeah, that proves something wrong aspect. Um, it's saying you don't know, and then think they know better than you, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna show you this. You're gonna rule the day, type of bullshit. So I think someone like that equivalent. can be, I don't want to say it can be toxic, but to a certain point, if you're just looking at raw skill sets, can be extremely beneficial.
If it's
Because you have
going
that.
back and forth, there needs to be a strong level of, I think it's kind of like what you were saying in the thing, where he was like, I actually respected that person a lot.
Yeah.
To go back and forth with an individual without having a deep level of respect, then I think that's when it becomes toxic.
You know, you're just like spiteful at that point.
But if there's like a deep admiration for that person, then as you go back and forth for it, you're just like, right, like the way that they're playing the game, you're just respecting the game that they're playing and using that as a leverage point of like where you're also getting. I think that's where you see the difference between individuals that compete by trying to improve themselves versus individuals that compete by tearing someone else down.
Mm.
Right? Like they want to be the tallest building because they are actually like stacking the floors to become the tallest building rather than someone that has a one floor building and they're just bringing a dang like wrecking ball across everywhere else and just knocking it down.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my friends kind of about my career. I was like, I love personal finance. I would love to make a dedicated personal finance like YouTube or TikTok or something and just kind of talking about the weeds of things that like I've learned being kind of first in my family for a lot of things like that. And the individual I was talking to, there's a couple of like mutual friends that we have that are also in the social realm. And one of the things that they're constantly struggling with are the comments. Like some people are just brutal, right? Like they just hate on you. And there's one individual that I won't mention them in the pod. I could tell you later of who it is because I think you actually know who it is too. But recently, there's another person that's in their same niche that just makes the worst stitches of their video and then talks trash. Like there's no value except for like literally every one of their videos is, oh, we're watching XYZ's video, you know, the stitch incoming. Oh, okay, boom. This is why this is wrong. And this is the like exposing this person thing. And I'm just like, yo, that is brutal because I've seen that other person's stuff and like it's good. Like it's very viable stuff. It's presented in a very neutral, not this is the end all be all solution, right? It's like thinking about personal finance. There's just different strategies. There's no right strategy to it.
The multiple ways to get to the end goal.
Absolutely. Like the number of ways of creating a budget, like there's so many different models. They all work. You just have to find one that fits for you. But instead, this person goes about and they're like, yeah, what this person said as a suggestion, trash, wrong, incorrect, terrible. And you're like,
what's going on?
Yeah. And so I think that comes back to what you were talking about with Rush about these two individuals. There's the I respect this person for what they're doing and I can improve in my expertise and realm, or I'm just going to go around and just create havoc.
Yeah. I think at the point as well was in the movie, they were creating havoc with each other. They would rat each other out about small little rules. They would try to any way to get the edge. It was pretty havoc-y, but they both knew they could still not talk, but you can see how that mutual respect was still there. So yeah, it was just, yeah. Damn, fun stuff. Yeah, that's all I wanted to share. That's all I got for this episode. So if you have another topic you want to dig into, we got some time. So
now go ahead, wrap this one up.
No, you wrap it up. I'm not doing it. You wrap it up.
Okay. Well, if you made it this far, let us know in the comments. What motivates you? Is it an enemy? Is it a goal? What is that deep desire that keeps pushing you to do something more? Don't forget to subscribe. And wow, I'm having a brain fart right now.
We'll see you at the next one.
There we go.
Peace.
Later.